Okay, Noreen, you can start. Noreen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening. Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hello. Okay. Good evening. I'm Naurin Fatima, and I welcome you all to the 82nd talk of Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series, jointly organized by IEEE Kerala Section, the Institution of Engineers, Kerala State Centre, Computer Society of India, Trivandrum Chapter, Project Management Institute, Kerala Chapter, Internet Society, Trivandrum Chapter, Vakka Maulavi Foundation Trust, Trivandrum, Life Member Affinity Group, IEEE Kerala Section, IEEE Engineering in Medicine and Biology, Kerala Chapter, the Institute of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering. For the defense and security of our country, trustworthy strategic system is a must. We have been dependent on import of close to 70% of the weapon systems required for our defense forces, and there have been efforts to indigenize the strategic systems for last many years for obvious reasons, such as trustworthiness, latest in technology, secrecy, cost effectiveness, and employment.
Oh, namaskaram.
So, hello?
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, sir. The benefits are dual use of developed technology and a mature ecosystem of engineering and technology. Many developed nations' economy based on export of weapon systems. Today, on our 82nd talk, we have Mr. R. Muralidharan, Life Senior Member, IEEE CTO Tata Advanced System Limited, Mumbai Member Board of Directors, Wireless Innovation Forum, sharing his wisdom on engineering strategic systems for Atmanirbharta. Before we begin, I would like to kindly bring your attention to the feedback link that will be provided during the session. Kindly fill the form and let us know your opinion. Also, please don't hesitate to mention if there is any requirement for the certificate of attendance. Now, I would like to call Ms. Rishta Shaju, EMBS volunteer, for welcoming the gathering.
Thank you, Naurin. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me tremendous confinement to represent IEEE family and to welcome each one of you to the 82nd talk of Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series. Let me appreciate the efforts of Harindra Lal Sir, co-volunteers, and professionals of Kerala section who are supporting this event in making this a huge success for the past 81 talks, bringing out the best profiles and presentations to the virtual room. Moving on to my assigned duty, today I find my immense pleasure to introduce our speaker, Mr. R. Muralidharan, fellow Indian National Academy of Engineering and Life Senior Member, IEEE, sharing his thoughts on engineering strategic systems for Atmanirbharta. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, I welcome Harindra Lal Sir, Chair of Inter-Society, the lead of IWWS, to this auspicious evening. I welcome you, sir. Next, I would like to extend my warm welcome to the volunteers of today's session, Naurin Fatima, Aishwarya, Amrita Aravind, and Jacob Verghese, to the 82nd talk of IWWS. I wholeheartedly welcome all the co-organizing societies, the professional community, and the most charming participants to this wonderful evening. Once again, my cordial welcome to all of you to the 82nd talk of Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishda. Now, I would like to invite Jacob Verghese of EMBS to introduce our respected speaker.
Thank you, Naurin. A warm evening to one and all. Most esteemed guest of honor, Mr. R. Muralidharan, all other esteemed dignitaries and their delegates. I, Jacob Verghese of TKMIT, is much privileged to introduce to you our respected speaker, Mr. R. Muralidharan, an adroit in the field of engineering, a very well experienced personality with over 40 years of experience in systems engineering. Currently, he is the CTO at Tata Advanced Systems Limited, Mumbai, where he is responsible for the technology of mission critical real time solution for Indian defense. Tata Advanced Systems Limited is a fully owned subsidiary of Tata Sons, a holding company of Tata Group. It is a lead system integration company for delivering weapons from the Tata Group to the Indian security forces. He is also the member of board of directors Wireless Innovation Forum, and he works in the Forum Committee for International Tactical Radios and ICSM. Mr. Muralidharan grabbed his graduation from CET in 1977 and post-graduation in electrical engineering from IIT Bombay. In 1987, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, the Honorable Prime Minister of India of that time, invited him to be the member of the distinguished young scientist team. Mr. Muralidharan is an enthusiastic IEEE volunteer for almost past 44 years. He also presided as the chairperson of IEEE India Council and Bombay session as a distinguished lecturer of IEEE Computer Society for 3 years. Mr. Muralidharan was a vice chair of Wireless Innovation Forum for 5 years and has been actively involved with the forum for the last 10 years in chairing technical sessions of conferences as member of TPC, presenting papers and all other prime duties. This year, his research paper co-authored with Mr. Vincent, titled as AI-enabled design agent for software engineering, was accepted for presentation at American CSE, the 19th International Conference on Software Engineering Research and Practice. With a never-ending impressive profile, Mr. R. Muralidharan is an excellent choice to talk on engineering strategic systems for Atmanirbhar Bharat. We are very much honored to welcome you, sir, and over to your session. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacob. Good evening, all of you. So can I start, or is there any other formality in between, please?
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you. Good evening. I'm really honored to present to you all my thoughts. May not be the wisdom, but my thoughts on what I do for a living. That is the strategic engineering of mission critical systems. Okay, there is a challenge. Okay, this doesn't allow me to change anything. Okay, I first have to give me a minute. Okay, so meanwhile, I got lost with the. No. Okay, there's a little challenge in the sharing of the screen. Shouldn't be there. Done it many times.
Please, I've done it twice. Same way.
See, once I share my screen, I'm not able to.
Now you can see that.
Yeah, but I'm not able to go into slide mode. Anyway. Yeah, okay. So good evening again. Thank you all for this coming to this talk, the 80-second talk. I'm very proud and honored to be the 82nd speaker of the series. So thank you very much, Mr. Haridhar Lal, for giving me a chance and your call and all that. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe 10, 12 years back, I did give a talk to this Inter-Society Forum personally in Trivandrum. So I'm quite honored to do it again as the 82nd speaker. And thank you again, fellow IEEE members of the other society, and ladies and gentlemen. So today, I just want to share with you a few thoughts about the strategic systems that we need to engineer correctly for our own protection, our own, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So let me start with the few slides that I have. This is strategy systems is about mission critical real-time systems, and they have to be architected with the right mix of hardware and software, right? Because unlike the standard systems that we buy, the laptops and the computer systems or the cell phones, we don't change a strategic system or a defense system every 3 years or every 5 years. The normal life of a system is on the order of 15 to 20 years minimum, right? Some of them go beyond 30 years too, right? So the systems that we design today has to be working. The life cycle is for another 30 years. So how can we improve it, upgrade it? These are all the challenges that we face from a standard system. So engineering a strategic system is quite different in philosophy and approach compared to a standard system that we develop for the commercial applications. Especially, for example, if we talk about a mobile phone, you don't want a mobile phone to be there for 30 years. You won't like it after 2 years, okay? So you should be worried more about how to dispose of a mobile phone rather than how it can be working for 30 years, right? So that's the main difference between a strategic system and a mission critical real-time system, okay? Now, most of the civil systems need not be real-time, okay? They can be near real-time if you really need it, and you have to pay a lot of cost for it. So here, in a strategic system, it has to be real-time, and hence you have to have the right mix of hardware and software. Okay, so now coming to the military expenditure world over, okay, military buying, procurement is a monopoly, not only in India, in almost all countries. That means there is only one market maker and one buyer. Okay, we can only sell it to one team, that is the defense services in India. There is no other buyer, okay, unless I try and export it, and that too it has to have the blessings of the government of India, right? So we have only one customer, right? And he decides what to buy, he decides how to buy, he decides how much he will be willing to pay. Okay, that's why it's called a monopoly. So this business itself is a very difficult business, right? Now, if you look at having said that, if you look at the global military expenditure world over, okay, in 2020, the last year, the world spent close to 2,000 billions, right? 2,000 billions of dollars were spent in military expenditure in 1 year, the year 2020, right? This is according to the SIPRI statistics. SIPRI is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute in Stockholm. They every year compile the military expenditures and publish it openly. So they published that close to $2,000 billion worth military gear has been sold or bought in the year 2020. Okay, and this is 2.4% of the global GDP. Okay, and this amounts to every individual on earth, the 7 billion people spending nearly $250 per person. So that's the kind of military expenditure world over. Okay, so if you look at the 5 largest military spenders in the world, it's US, China, and we are the third. India, and we are even ahead of Russia. Okay, and then comes Saudi Arabia. Right? So we are the third largest country, third largest spender of military systems in the world. Okay, and these 5 countries together spend nearly 62% of the total $2,000 billion. Right. So this is to give you a picture of, or a picture of what is the military sales world over. Right. India is estimated to have spent 72 billion in 2020. Okay, and we are the largest importer of arms. This is very important. 70% of our Indian defense requirements are imported. Okay. At the same time, we have also set a target to export defense systems at least by $25 billion in another 4 years, by 2025. Okay. This is a goal that we have set for the last year in August. Okay. Now, with this background of defense being great, I also want to share with you that if you look at the Indian history, okay, I use the word history, right? We are a very strong science and technology nation. Okay, we lost it in the last few centuries. Okay, but if you look at the real thing, in fact, there is proof that we knew about Pythagoras theorem, okay, much before Pythagoras himself could think about it in Greece. Okay, the Sulva Sutras in 800 to 500 BC talks about the Pythagoras theorem. Okay, just for information, I'm sharing that references, etc. So they said the diagonal of a rectangle gives an area equal to the sum of the areas given by its length and breadth. This is exactly what Pythagoras, without knowing these things, or I don't know what, he devised it much later in Greece. But much before that, we knew. And so many things are things we knew. And they also say that Tipu Sultan used a rocket for the first time. Right? Of course, he had some French collaboration in that, but he developed the rocket system much before the rest of the world. So I need to share this slide, that this is courtesy at Advanced Systems for helping me understand and share these things. And these are my personal views and not of the company I work for or the government of India. And whatever information I'm sharing is in the unclassified thing. So you can also quote it, and no challenges of that. Okay. Now, looking at the strategic engineering systems or defense systems or mission critical real-time systems. Okay. One basic criteria for all of them is they are software defined systems. Okay. They have a lot of software in it. Right. And their functionality, performance, etc. are all software defined. This is important to know. So every strategic system, mission critical real-time system, has a key component of software, the embedded software. Okay. So mission critical real-time systems are architected with the right mix of hardware and software, and they have a good amount of embedded software, and the changes of the functionality, the doctrine, the parameters are changed through the embedded software, and they have time sensitive functionality embedded into it, and they have programmable elements. Okay. So if you all of it look at it, there's a large amount of software in a mission critical real-time system or a strategy system or a defense system, right? So if you remember, there was this book by Tannenbaum on computer architecture. So Tannenbaum long ago stated that the software and hardware are logically equal, right? So if you look at the modern cars today, okay, they also have a lot of embedded software. A lot of software practices have come from the automotive industry, right? Today, the automotive industry uses more software and electronic components than most of the rest of the industry. Okay, so automotives are running on software. So are the defense systems. Right? Many standards in engineering, software engineering, are coming from the automotive industry. Okay, some of you might have heard of a version of C called MISRA C. Okay, MISRA, MISRA C. We in the defense systems only write in MISRA C, not in the standard C. Okay, and this MISRA stands for Motor Industries Software Reliability Association. Right? So they realized that the embedded software written in standard C is not very reliable. So they introduced concepts called MISRA, okay, which the whole defense industry world over now practices. Okay. Now, the challenge in a military system, right, is that if you make a prototype, it takes a long time, right? And then you make a prototype and you find that it is not the right one, so you change it again. So the development cycle is very, very large. In the previous years, if you want to create a real defense system, okay, we used to take nothing less than 5 to 10 years. Right? And that's a long time in this periods. Okay, so the systems engineering concept itself has evolved or got revolutionized in military systems. So today we talk about the practice systems engineering and the concept of a digital twin. Okay, we create a digital prototype to start with, which can do lots of functionalities, give us a very good confidence that the first physical proto will be almost close to what you want. Okay, as long as you understand all the operational environments, etc. So the military systems today need to heavily use digital prototyping, otherwise called as digital twins, okay, and heavy amount of systems engineering. Okay, you have to model it, you have to analyze it, you have to do fatigue analysis, you have to do mathematical modeling, you have to visualize it in a virtual reality, you have to do complex analysis for that, Okay, all of that is required to create a digital prototype and test it thoroughly digitally before you actually build the first prototype. So this has been able to help us reduce the total time to a much, even still it takes 3 to 4 years, but it has come down from 10 years to 3 years. Okay. Now, it's obligatory on my part, since my company sponsored or rather allowed me to give this talk, I need to quickly tell you what my company does. Okay. So the particular division in Tata Group, which is the Tata Advanced Systems Limited, soon to be called as Tata Aerospace and Defense. So we develop along with DRDO. DRDO gives us the specs and we design the specs of their system, what they tell us. So we have developed artillery systems. We have developed a 155 caliber software-defined gun. Okay. We develop command and control systems. We develop a lot of optronics, including night vision systems. We develop and also tie up with foreign partners to deploy radars in India. Another major business that we do is the launchers for rockets, missiles, etc. Okay. Last week, you might have recollected that India test fired its Agni 5, ICBM, 5,000 kilometer range intercontinental ballistic missile. Okay. It's a 50-ton missile, and this 50-ton missile has to be launched properly from a platform. So that launcher is from us and L&T. Okay. We independently make these launchers for the government. So the last week's Agni 5, okay, it's a very, very critical system for India. It's an intercontinental ballistic missile. Okay. It goes out of the space and re-enters the space. And it has very high accuracy. It can go up to 5,000 kilometers. So we made a launcher for that and it was tested on that. We do a lot of projects for electronic warfare, also for border security and its management, and the naval systems. So I'm proud to say that Cochin Shipyard is building the country's first indigenous aircraft carrier. It will be commissioned as INS Vikrant. If you get a chance to go to Cochin Shipyard, the sea there, you can see the ship there, the aircraft carrier. The compact management system on board that indigenous aircraft carrier is developed by us. It's being commissioned there. Soon it will be sailing. Okay. Another new thing we are trying to do is fuel cell systems. Okay. So normally we use diesel generators for generating power on the move, right? You have military systems have to be mobile, has to be nomadic rather. So they all need power. You cannot draw your grid power from that. Of course, at times we do if there's a grid nearby. Otherwise, we'll have to depend on onboard power source. Normal thing is to use diesel generators. But diesel generators create sound. They also give out heat signatures. Right? So the enemy can come to know that you are generating heavy power and that's where your equipment will be nearby, etc. So can you have silent power source? Okay. And again, the diesel generators, apart from sound, it creates other pollutants. So can we avoid all that? So the newer technology is fuel cells based on hydrogen. Okay. It's a what they call green fuel. So one of the recent developments that we are trying to do is developing or have already developed hydrogen fuel cell systems. Okay. Just to give you a sample of how we think ahead of the requirements and develop them, and then as the Army or Navy or Air Force changes their specifications, we try and sell them thinking, okay, look, we can do this. We also keep track of what is happening in the rest of the world and try and take our own developments ahead of time. Okay. Now, let's look at the challenges. Okay. What are the challenges of the strategic systems? Okay, this is very important for us to quickly go through this. One is, as I shared earlier, there is a life cycle of these systems nearly 20 to 30 years. So this design should be that. Okay, why 30 years or 20 years is challenge? Many of the systems get up, many of the components that we use in it become obsolete. Requirements change. Okay, so the next point is this: requirements change and obsolescence sets in. Yeah, I think someone else has to also mute, I think. Getting some background noise. Yeah, thank you. The requirements, 30 years is a long time. Okay, the war doctrines changes, philosophy changes, strategy changes. So we need to update the system. So the requirements change, and there is obsolescence of electronic parts and everything else, right? So this managing this requirements change and obsolescence is a major challenge for developing strategic systems. Okay. Third is the hardware and software documentation. Not many people document things well, right? It works, but they don't document it. The next generation who comes in to maintain it or upgrade it will find it very difficult. So you need very extensive hardware and software documentation. Okay. Then we need to adopt a concept of a platform architecture, because you cannot develop everything yourself. So you have to create a platform architecture in which you can plug and play with various subsystems. So you need to adopt this concept of a platform architecture in your strategic systems if it has to stay for 20, 30 years. And then, as I alluded earlier on, the systems have to be necessarily software defined, like the modern automobile, right? Then we have to adopt the industry 4.0 standards, starting right from the design stage. We should be able to understand how it is going to be manufactured. What are challenges in manufacturing? Can we really manufacture it? Can we mass produce it? Second, another point is advanced simulators for systems. This is as part of the digital twin I talked about. Unless you have very good simulators which can simulate very, very faithfully, okay, you will not be able to model them correctly. And unless you model them correctly, you do not know how it's going to behave. Otherwise, it will take a long time, many iterations. Okay, so simulators are very, very important. That too, very, very simulators with high amount of fidelity. Right? Then these systems are going to be used in harsh environments and where there is harsh electromagnetic interferences. So this system should withstand harsh environments, minus temperatures in the Sikkim area, plus 45 plus in Pokhran areas, and there will be high electromagnetic interferences. Everybody is communicating, everybody's radio is working, a lot of things are happening. In all that environment, it should work reliably. Okay. So, and the newer things that are challenging the strategic systems are cyber and EMP. Cyber means today's strategic systems are all networked. So it's called net-centric warfare. Every weapon system, every soldier is forming part of a network. Okay, he's communicating on the radio, the higher echelon, and they in turn are giving suggestions and doctrines or commands how to go about doing it. So if you're not careful, your network can be hacked into, and there can be cyber attacks. So your strategic system has to be cyber hardened. Okay. Then another important thing is called EMP, electromagnetic pulse hardening. So I don't know how many of you have seen a movie called Ocean's 11. Okay, in Ocean's 11, what they try and depict is they wanted to rob a bank and it was very tough to rob. So they exploded an electronic bomb. Okay. When there's a nuclear bomb explosion, there's a lot of electromagnetic pulses being created. The same thing can be created with an electronic bomb. This EMP pulses destroy all chips. Okay. So even without a nuclear bomb, you can nullify an adversary by creating an electronic bomb. Okay. So you have to, now we have to be countering that. So you need to protect or harden your systems for cyber attack as well as EMP pulses. Right? So this has become a bigger challenge. So now we talked about the functionality of a system. Okay, I want to do certain things, but I want to do it in a harsh environment where there's a lot of electromagnetic interference and there's a suspect of cyber attack, there's an EMP attack. So all of this has to worry. And if I take care of all of this, I find that in 3 years' time, all the components have become obsolete. Right? And then the user says, oh, warfare has changed, the doctrine has changed, I'm going to change the philosophy of my fighting, change the parameters, change the way you are to use the equipment. Right? So it's evolving, things are getting obsolete, harsh environment, attacks, cyber and EMP attacks. So all of these conditions make the strategic system engineering a big challenge. Okay. Hence, very few countries can make reliable weapon systems. Okay, that's the reason why many countries do not get into it, they all import. Okay, we have been following the same thing, but it's high time we change this concept. Okay, so this is about the obsolescence management, right? So you cannot say that components cannot go obsolete. Components will become obsolete, right? Then how do you manage that? Okay, so managing obsolescence is a big challenge. I will not go into the details of it. Before we choose a component, we have to see how long it's going to be there in the market. Is it a tier one? Are tier one companies using it? Okay, so there's a lot of analysis we do before we even choose a component. So the latest processor I may not be able to use. Okay, I cannot use the Google's tensor processing unit TPU for my machine learning systems, because we don't know whether they are going to come with the same thing or they're going to change it tomorrow. Still evolving. So basically, we are look for matured components ecosystem, right? Yeah. So having said this much, let me also share with you what are the thoughts of the top army brass in the country. Okay. 2020, the army made a press release, and this is what I'm showing you is from the Times News Network as of August 8, 2020, just a year old. Okay, so this army press release says that army is going to study lasers, robotics, and AI for warfare. They said AI, remotely piloted aerial systems, drone swarms, big data analysis, blockchain technology. Imagine blockchain technology, algorithmic warfare, Internet of Things, virtual reality, and you name it. All of them they are talking about will be required tomorrow for the future warfare. Okay, so a lot of people thought that military systems mean heavy steel systems. Okay, it's not anymore. It's software defined. It's using most of the modern tech, even advanced technologies, which we may not be using in the civil world. Okay, so this is a Times News Network. I've given the time, etc. of this. Similarly, the army chief recently, in July 21, okay, few months back, after the Jammu drone attack, he made a statement that we need AI to fight and win our wars. Okay. He did not talk about missiles. He did not talk about guns. He did not talk about some other weapon system. He said we need AI to fight our war and win our wars. Okay. This was a 5th July 2021 statement by the current army chief. This is from the Economic Times. Okay. So he's talking about the imaginative and offensive use of drones, okay, riding on AI algorithms. Okay, have been heavily used, and we need to have AI to fight and win our wars. This is the army chief talking in July 2021 to the Indian press. Okay. So what we need to understand is, yes, military systems, strategy systems need the latest in technology. Okay, and if you want to be self-sufficient, okay, for the Atma Nirbharta, self-sufficiency, we need to commercialize technology. Okay, in order to commercialize technology, we should have technology. Having technology is not enough. You need to be able to commercialize it. Okay, hence we need to do research in science as well as technology, right? To get the newer technologies. First is science, then they mature into technologies. You need to worry about product and system conceptualization. How can we conceptualize a system or a product? Okay, and we need to worry about refining product system specification to match with the end user needs. Okay, what you may think is what the user may not be interested in. Okay, so your research in science. So look at the thing. So developing a commercial system, a commercial defense system or a strategy system is not going to be easy. You should have the full ecosystem of research in science technology, product development, product conceptualization, okay, and then how to refine them to meet a particular army or navy's needs. Indian army may be requiring it differently from the some other army, okay, maybe the Moroccan army. They may have did it differently, okay. Now, the conventional methodologies that we use to develop systems, the waterfall model may not work. We may have to adopt agile development methodologies. Okay, we may have to bring in the user right at the day one, seek his advices and approvals as we go ahead. Okay, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a system that meets the end user expectations, you are not going to be successful. Okay, So you have to adopt the newer development methodologies. Okay. Then the environmental impact of the product or system is also important. Okay. Military systems had the concession of, not being environment friendly. That is no more true. You cannot emit anything which is affecting the environment. Okay. The climate authorities will catch you if you develop a system which can impact the environment. Okay. Now, at the end is a system meeting all the user requirements, meeting all the environment, meeting all the climatic requirements. Okay, that's not enough. When it is reached its end life cycle, okay, you need to know how to retire it correctly. Okay, how to dispose of. It's a big issue because you have large amount of hardware. Okay, how do you retire them in a eco-friendly manner? That itself is a challenge. Okay, just to give you a flavor of what are the upcoming major programs of the Government of India, as this is all in the open domain. Okay, so the Government of India has, specifically the Ministry of Defense, has declared that they would like Indian companies to come with a light tank. Okay, so we have already developed our own tank called the MPT Arjun. It's a heavy tank, right? So they want a light. The MPT Arjun is 50 plus tons. So they want something close to 25 tons, which can go in the mountains. Okay, our adversaries are in the eastern part of India. There is whole mountainous region. So we need a light tank that can go up and down the mountains. Then they've also given an RFI for a mounted gun system. Okay, a gun that can be on a truck, so it can be moved faster. Right. Then they want all those RFIs are in the public domain. Public domain meaning open to the concerned people. Right. They're talking about a futuristic infantry combat vehicle, a combat vehicle that can carry infantry teams of 10 to 12 at a time, but well protected. They're looking for a Internet of military things. Okay. So as I told you earlier, the scenario is a network. Okay, it's net-centric warfare. So they want to create an Internet of military things. We want to know where our resources are. Where is our soldier? Okay, where is our gun? In a short while, they want to get an overall picture, something called COP, Common Operating Picture, or situational awareness. At any point in time, I should know where are my resources? Where are they at this point in time? At which location? How many shells are remaining? What resources they need? All of that need to be talked about. Okay. The next one I'm talking about is a very important project called LACM. Okay. I don't know how many of you are aware of something called a Sputnik moment. Okay. I urge all of you to Google what is Sputnik moment. Okay. It was 1959. It was early 50s when Russia launched Sputnik. Russia means the erstwhile USSR, right? The Soviet Union launched the Sputnik. That is the first satellite to go up in the space, right? This took the Americans by a big shock. They never expected Soviet Union to launch a space vehicle under the Sputnik, okay? And that was the beginning of a revolutionary change in the defense technology development in the US. They started DARPA. Okay, they started a lot of things after Sputnik went up to space. This is called a Sputnik moment. Okay, the second Sputnik moment that happened was recently. China created a cruise missile that could go around the Earth at a low altitude, cruise around the Earth, and then attack, get dropped at the right place very accurately. A cruise missile that can avoid radars, okay, and go around and attack. Cruise missiles are very, very important. Remember, Indian missiles are mostly ballistic missiles. Okay, we only make one cruise missile still to be proven called Nirbhay. Okay, cruise missiles are very, very crucial. While we talk about many missile technology in India, we don't have a reliable cruise missile. The only cruise missile that is reliable is the Russian-owned one. Okay, we get the technology from Russia, and that's made close to Trivandrum. near the Trivandrum airport. I did not name it. I think you can guess the name. So another requirement is the FRCV. So what I'm talking about cruise missiles is there's a lot of scope for development of cruise missile. A lot of technology goes into it. Very different from a ballistic missile. Okay. Then there is this future main battle tank. Okay. Autonomous vehicles. They need a series of radios. One radio doing all jobs. So that can be only done by a software-defined radio, the different waveforms for each functionality. Okay. The government has declared all of these are required. Okay. Using RFIs, UIs, etc. They're all active. It to be developed. It to be started by many government and private companies. Okay, so these are the upcoming opportunities. Great opportunities, very challenging ones. Okay. And luckily, after a lot of advocacy, the government said, we will ban certain imports of weapon systems. So they have issued a negative list of 101 items. Okay. This is a big boost for the Indian defense industry. So we were all worried. We make a weapon system. It may not be as good as an imported Russian or American system. So they will not buy it from us. So what happens to all the investment, the energy, enthusiasm with which we developed it? Okay. So now the government is taking steps to create negative import lists. They will not import certain things. Okay. This is a big boost. So DoD has published a list of projects seeking private industry collaboration. They said, we will not be doing everything on our own. We will collaborate with private industry. They published a list of the projects, very, very challenging projects. Right? Then there is this famous IDEX, which is a 500 crore fund for startups to develop new technologies for the defense systems. Okay. Earlier, startups and MSMEs and SMSMEs were not part of the defense industry. Right? Now they are being attracted. Even a startup can get a challenge from IDEX, work on it, the government will fund it, and you can use the government funding to solve the problem or come with a new technology, a startup company. I understand a lot of startup companies in Cochin and Trivandrum are doing this. Okay. All the best to them. Then there's this new industry organization called SIDM, okay, which is an industry body focusing on defense systems. We didn't have that. We only had CAI, ASSOCHAM, and FICCI, whose interest was large industries, non-defense industries. Under CAI, now we have formed something called SIDM. This is just purely for defense industry. Okay, so the government sharing its future projects, banning imports, the industry organizations coming together to create defense industry things, opening up challenges for startup companies, for small companies. All this is trying to create an ecosystem in India for engineering strategic systems. Right? Plus, the government is saying we will help you export systems. May not be the top end systems, but start with small subsystems. Right? And they have set a target, $25 billion by 2025. And they're encouraging defense private industries and everybody to do that. And believe me, there are a lot of exports from India for defense, but they are not in the value chain. Right? We need to reach the value chain of that. Okay. Now we saw that the army and the army chief said that they need AI, machine learning, to win wars. See, China is leading in the AI research and development and all of that compared to anywhere else in the world. Right? US is doing it. Right? So what are the AI systems that we may need to look at, or the challenges in the AI or machine learning enabled defense systems? Okay. Indian MOD has an AI machine learning strategy, which is formulated by a higher level committee in 2019. They have an AI machine learning strategy in place, MOD, in addition to the government of India with an AI policy. Remember, the US has a strict export regulations for AI systems. They will not export AI systems. Right? So, which means the AI systems has to be developed indigenously. That's the message we get. Okay? At no cost will US export AI systems for military use. So we need to necessarily develop our own solutions. And we know that it is a must for winning a war. Okay. But the challenge in the machine learning system is it depends on the quality of data that we need to train the machine learning models with. And this data is available only with users. Okay, the applications. So we need to create an ecosystem by which we can log the data, later on tag it and use it for training our machine learning systems so that they can be effective. So the ecosystem for defense projects is fast growing in India too, similar to the auto industry. Okay, we had earlier only 2 cars, Purmia Padmini and Ambassador. Today, look at the system. Okay, yes, I can agree with you. Many of them are imported technologies, but Mahindras and Tatas are doing their own development from scratch and coming up with good vehicles, meeting our requirements, crash requirements, etc. Okay. For example, the Akash weapon system that has been inducted into the Army and Navy, it has got 600 partners, 600 companies in India making it happen. Okay, we are large partner in that, but we in turn depend on 250 partners in Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad. Right? So it's creating an ecosystem. Like the auto industry, the defense industry is creating a large ecosystem. So if the defense industry booms, it's not only Tata's, L&T and Adani's and Reliance who's going to benefit, it will be thousands of small-time innovative companies who are going to really prosper. So like I said, it is going to create huge employment. Our economy will change, GDP will change. Right? Having said all this, it's getting closer to my time. So let me, as an epilogue, let me tell you, this is something sharing with you as an engineer, as a developer, okay? There is something like half-life of an engineer, right? If you don't do anything for 6 months, don't do any reading, you just close yourself, okay? You have reached your half-life, okay? You will not be current. So it's important that you need to adopt lifelong learning. Okay. And this, companies are not going to help you learn yourself. You have to learn yourself. Okay. So you need to be active in IEEE, IET, IE, AAA, so many organizations where you can learn. Please don't learn from Wikipedia. Okay. Like this weekly inter-society talk, it's a very noble thing. I'm very happy that it's happening in Kerala. It doesn't happen in many states in India. Most advanced state, Maharashtra, okay, Bombay, it doesn't happen. Right? So this is a great initiative. So all of us should attend weekly technical seminars, try to understand, write there, ask questions, and learn lifelong. Culture of IP creation patenting should be there in us. We should know, am I creating IP? Can I patent it? At the same time, ensure that you're not infringing somebody's patent. Okay. Hence, search the patents. Right? Understand what has been patented, what are available. Can I do something different from that? Right? And all this, as an industry, you cannot do without academic collaboration. Okay? You have to have strong academic collaboration. This is what US did. This is what China is doing. Okay? So remember, industry has to collaborate with academia. Right? So not only the industry benefits, the students, teachers get to know more, and they can train or come out with better students who can be easily the right engineers for our industry. Okay, so every industry has to have a technology roadmap, a manufacturing readiness roadmap, and etc., and the technology readiness level of their product. This is very, very important. Right? Similarly, I don't know how many of you know, there's a difference between know why and know how. Okay, we very times say, oh, I am trying to acquire know how. I know how the system works, but I don't know why it works like that. Unless I know why, I cannot modify it. I cannot improve it. Okay, just knowing know how is not sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. Right? Something I know how it works. So what? Can I change it? For that, I need to know the know-how and the know-why. So if you want to understand the know-why, you should be the one who developed it. Nobody shares know-why. Okay. Some of you are senior in this audience will remember we had Premier Padmini car for a long time. Okay. 30 years back, look at a 30 years back Premier Padmini car. Okay. Its wipers were meant for a left-hand drive car. They did not even bother to change it for a right-hand drive car. Okay. So a Premier Padmini car, if you are driving in a rainy season, the driver on the right-hand side is half blind. The left-hand side, passenger will be seeing clearly because the wiper was wiping in the wrong way. Okay. Only recently they changed it. Recently means 10, 20, 15 years back. So this is how we absorb technology and do things in India. Things are changing, right? So you should understand the know why of things. Okay. As I told in the introduction, they said India imports more than 70% of its defense requirements. Okay, and that too, the defense systems that we get are previous generation systems. They are not the current ones. Okay, so Atmanirbharta or Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliance is no more an option. Okay, it's a must, and this can lead to higher employment and improving of the economy. Okay, so this is a must for us. And remember, earlier days, most of the new technologies were developed as part of military research. You can look at ARPANET, CDMA, radar, all of them were military systems, which came into the civil world and helped us lead a better life. Okay, but this trend is changing. Okay, civilian research and development is fast overtaking military research. Okay, for example, the 5G. The 5G communication technology is nowhere close to what military is using. Machine learning, nowhere close to what military is using today. Okay. So our objective should be to make in India. What does make in India mean? Okay, not assembling and testing, but creating in India. Creating in India by Indians. Okay, we need to conceive a system. We need to system engineer it. We need to design it. We need to develop it. We need to manufacture it. We need to deploy it, and we need to upgrade it and do technology refreshment from time to time. And at the end, retire it in an eco-friendly manner. Right? So this is Make in India. Creating in India by Indians is Make in India. Not getting TOT from a company and assembling and giving it to the Indian defense. That is no Make in India. Right? With this, my prayer is let peace prevail. Let there be no war. Okay. Whatever we do is as a deterrent. Okay. But there should be peace world over. So that's my prayer. Let peace prevail. With this, thank you all. I think I've slightly exceeded my time. Sorry for that, but I hope I could convince you that we need to work harder. We need to be self-reliant. We need to have a Atmanirbhar Bharat where we create our solutions ourselves and upgrade it as per the user requirements, hence lift up the economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful session. It was great listening to you. We have some queries raised in the chat box. If any of you have more further queries, to post them in the chat box. So, sir, it will be very kind of you if you could respond to those. Shall I read them to you, sir?
Sure, please. Will you be reading it out, or what is the format you would like to do?
I'll read, sir.
Okay.
So, first query, under optronics, do we develop laser gyros? Can you share details?
See, optronics and laser gyros are two different things. Laser gyros are gyros, which are a very different technology than optronics vision systems, night vision systems we do, right? Gyros we don't develop, but the DRDO develops ring laser gyro, okay, which you can get a TOT from RCI Hyderabad, which is a part of the DRDO, and we manufacture them under license from the DRDO, ring laser gyros. If you Google, you will get a little bit of this from the DRDO website. This is called ring laser gyros. These are used in the seekers, in the missiles and weapon systems. Right? Gyros is a big technology. Okay, so we have not Tata's, but the DRDO has developed it. It's available for private industries to license and manufacture. But it needs a lot of infrastructure to manufacture, calibrate a good gyro, especially a ring laser gyro. Optronics is different. We don't do that. We only manufacture this from the technology given by the DRDO. Hope I answered the question.
Okay, sir. The next query, can you suggest, sir, how Kerala can contribute to the Atmanirbharta, which Government of India proposal to make in India?
Yeah. So I'm not saying this because I'm a Keralite, right? If you look at the flavor of what I presented, okay, heavy amount of software is going into it. Heavy amount of software, and that is real-time mission critical software, right? So Kerala has the highest literacy, highest education system, right? Most of us can be software engineers. I started my career as a software engineer, right? And then went on to systems engineering. So a lot of courses in embedded systems, in software reliability can be there. And many of us in Kerala can contribute to the embedded systems that's required for the mission critical systems, right? And we should encourage not IT software, but embedded real-time system software environment in Kerala. Okay. And compared to, you don't need a workforce for that. You need a real engineers for that. And with our level of education and awareness, we should be able to contribute maximum in this new endeavor. Yeah, and then another thing is attracting the best of companies to start facilities in Kerala, right? And use the manpower there for this development. So the industry policy have to be looked into by the Kerala government. Okay. For example, Tamil Nadu and UP are leading today, apart from Hyderabad, which is Telangana, right? In this, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, and Uttar Pradesh are coming forward with a lot of incentives for starting defense industries. Even Maharashtra is not up to mark. Karnataka was there earlier, but they are now in the 4th rank. Tatas have many facilities in Telangana and Karnataka. Yeah. Next question, please.
Yes, sir. Next question. The latest example of China's test of a hypersonic weapon has even startled US. What's its impact world over and especially on us with the border disputes with China?
Yeah.
How will India counter it?
Yeah. So this is the one I talked about, the Sputnik moment for China. China recently did this, a cruise missile that went around the Earth before hitting the target, right? So this is a big hypersonic cruise missile. It's a cruise missile. That's what I talked about earlier. The cruise missile technology we don't have. We only have borrowed BrahMos technology, which is made in Trivandrum, partly made in Trivandrum, okay, the BrahMos. And we are trying to develop one of our own called Nirbhay, which is still not a successful. So the government has realized that, and they are going a big way in the LRSEM project, where they are bringing in private industry to develop this long-range cruise missile. Right? So it's very important for us to develop a cruise missile, then change it to hypersonic soon. But we lack a lot of that. It needs a series of disciplines to make it happen. It's going to affect us heavily. China is very strong in cruise missiles, whereas we are very strong in ballistic missiles. Yeah, so I see a question from Narayan Nair about we making chips. Yes, it is not in the electronic city. It is in Hosur in Tamil Nadu. The Tamil Nadu government gave Tata 500 acres to set up a new company called Tata Electronics. It is not in the defense sector, it's in the civil sector, where we will be trying to make most of the chips are then the high-end processor chips. Okay, this is a government-private collaboration to make chips. If you look at statistics world over, 60% of the world's chip requirements are only made in Taiwan. Okay, something happens to Taiwan industry, you know what is happening around Taiwan. If that happens, we will not have any chips. You can't make any defense system. Okay, it's high time that another major resource crunch will be the semiconductor devices. So India, though late, is taking steps. Tata's joint hands with the government. Tamil Nadu government has given 500 acres in Hosur, near Electronic City.
So, another question.
Yeah.
Process of keeping the confidentiality of the technology. Earlier, it was government.
No, so you were talking about how do you keep a technology confidential, right? See, today it's very easy. The technology lies in the software, right? And even the same company, another set of people in the same company is difficult to understand for them to understand, right? So most of the technology remains in the software algorithms, not the software per se, but the algorithms used in those things, right? And nobody patents it, nobody publishes it. Okay? Like the Coca-Cola secret, nobody knows how Coca-Cola is made. They didn't patent it. People try to reverse engineer it, but not successful. So how to protect your IP? Every engineer has to learn. It'll be taught if you join a private company. How to protect the IP. Not only create IP, how to protect it. And also how you are not infringing somebody's IP. Okay. So IP management is a very important thing. And just to share with you, the gentleman in India who is spearheading this concept strategy is Professor Damodaran from IIM Bangalore. You can Google for him, Professor Damodaran from IIM Bangalore. He's the chair professor for IP in the country. I've had a couple of occasions to interact with him and even do a workshop with him. Okay? A big authority on IP management in the country. He's helping the government frame policies for IP management, IP protection, etc. And also helping private industries understand how to have an IP policy. Yeah. Next question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing all the posts out there. Now I invite Amrita Aravind to deliver the vote of thanks.
No, somebody asked me a question I saw popping up. It's about, is obsolescence management counter productive thing? I do agree with you. Obsolescence management can be counterproductive if we can use drop-in replacements with better swap, size, weight, and power. Okay. So obsolescence management doesn't mean that you keep producing the old items and using it. Obsolescence management technologically means that how can I replace a system by a platform architecture, by standard interfaces? Okay. For example, somebody asked a question about ring laser gyro. Okay. Today I have a ring laser gyro. Tomorrow I have an advanced version of a MEMS gyro. MEMS gyro. So can I replace a ring laser gyro with a MEMS gyro without affecting the rest of the performance easily? That is obsolescence management. Designing a system for that. Can I design an overall system with clean interfaces? Okay. So that tomorrow I can change it by adapting a little bit of software. Okay. So I agree with you. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
now I invite Amrita Aravind to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very warm good evening to all present here. I'm indeed privileged
to deliver the vote of thanks for the 82nd Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series talk. Firstly, I express my hearty gratitude towards Muralidharan R. Sir for giving us a beautiful keynote on the topic Engineering Strategic Systems for Atmanirbharta. Thank you so much, sir. The session was indeed very informative. Thank you so much, sir. Next, I express my gratitude towards Mr. Haridharal, sir, for his sincere efforts for the smooth and the seamless conduct of these 82 Inter-Society talks. Thank you so much, sir. Next, I take my opportunity to thank all the role players of the day. Zoom controls were given by Aishwarya. The MP of the day was Naurin Fatima. The welcome was given by Rushda Shaju. And the introduction to speaker was delivered by Jacob Varghese. A very hearty thank you to all of you. Last but not the least, I express my hearty gratitude towards all the participants who actively participated and shared your valuable feedbacks, which had made this event a great success. Thank you so much all. Thank you.
So thank you all and wishing you all a happy Diwali.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita. Now, as we have come to the end of today's session, I would like to announce the next talk in our series of talks. On next Wednesday, the 10th of November from 6 to 7 p.m., we will have our 83rd talk of Inter-Society Weekly Webinar Series on my experience with heavy haul propulsion by K. Ajit Kumar, Vice President, Technology Innovation in Wabtec US. I request all our amiable attendees to kindly take a note and register for the session. So here is a goodbye from our 82nd talk. Hope to see you all on next Wednesday. Thank you from the bottom heart for joining with us. Thank you. The meeting is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muralidharan, for your time and
Thank you. It was my pleasure, Mr. Haridharan. And as I told you, the Kerala Inter-Society is doing a great job by having a weekly talk. It's very, very important for lifelong learning. So my earnest request to the audience is please come more often, learn and practice. Thank you for your lifelong learning. And Mr. Haridharan and team, this is a great initiative by you all. I really appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
So I'm seeing my old colleague, J. Murali Mohan Lal, who was my colleague in IEEE. When I was the Bombay section chair, he was the Kerala section chair. Sir, good evening. How are you doing?
Fine. Thank you for remembering me.
Oh, no. I remember I learned from all of you and I still learn. Yeah. I also see my classmate Neelu. Neelu, thank you for connecting me with Mr. Haridharan.
special thanks to Nilanjan for connecting a very great speaker from a very great area, presenting very novel things. Thank you very much, Nilanjan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haridhalal and Mr. Murli.
Thank you, Neelu. Yeah.
We look forward to your patronage in the future also.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Nilanjan, for the motivation you have given to us. Yeah, that we will lead to it. Very much.
Thank you. I am again urging all the audience, youngsters, please learn more. Please understand the challenges. Work harder. Learn more. Okay.
Thank you very much for your answer on management of obsolescence.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Panika. It was I didn't have enough time for each of the subject I talked about. I need an hour or two to explain the motive and the right approach. But today my objective was to, at a bird's eye view, open up the defense systems, say that there is a lot of challenges, a lot of things happening, right? And we should, as a state, orient towards that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mr. Muralidharan, for future talks on your different areas, different expertise.
Sure. I'll be more than happy to talk on a specific area, not in general like motivation, but more specific about a specific subject. So maybe a couple of months later or 3 months later, I can connect back and do the needful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Aishwarya, You may.
So Aishwarya team, thank you again. All of you did a great job of very well, technically very well conducted the show. There was no failure, nothing, etc. I'm very happy. I do find many issues in other forums where I give talks. Okay, but here it was everything went well. Good number of audience. Right, thank you. And that too on a pre-Diwali day. So today is a Choti Diwali in North India, and I'm sure it is tomorrow morning is Diwali in Kerala too. Right, so everybody would have been busy, but they found the time to learn, come over and learn. It's great. Thank you.
May please close it.
Yeah. Thank you all. Take care.
Yeah. Happy Diwali to all.
Enjoy your learning. Yeah. Bye-bye.